Today we're going to talk about the bottom of the Bitcoin price, and I will show you some evidence based on a very unique feature of Bitcoin itself, very specific characteristics of Bitcoin, that it is very likely that the previous low at $3,150 on Coinbase was the bottom of Bitcoin price, and even if we will go a little bit lower than that, then it will be pretty sharp, and we will return back very soon, and most likely will go just sideways and then upwards from that. So what is the particular feature what I'm talking about? You see, Bitcoin is probably the only one asset in the world right now which has such a transparent history of all the transactions which are associated with Bitcoins, with those coins on its blockchain, because you can have everything from the history of transactions which you can extract from the blockchain, but all the other asset, the data is pretty much hidden, and even though you can get some of it, it's still not complete at all. So for the Bitcoin though, you can it represents the capital movement, the movement of the funds, the flow of the capital, which is dealing with Bitcoin. So, and this is one of the most important, most crucial data for analysis which you can imagine, above all, apart of the price itself. So when we look at the technical analysis, we always try to use the price. Sometimes we use the volume and everything like that, but it's only numbers, it's only the digits, nothing really, it's really abstract, right? It doesn't deal with the real asset, so it can be everything. But in case of Bitcoin, you can actually add that blockchain transactions data and track this capital flow in order to see how the real things are going on. So let's look at that. First, let's go to the probably Bitstamp, because it has the longer history, and then let's switch to the weekly chart and logarithmic scale. So now we can have the whole history in one screen, and then let's add our indicator, which is based on that features. Indicator, actually we'll talk about the whole set of indicators today, at least two. We'll talk about mostly two indicators based on those features, and first of those, the one which is less interesting than another one, but still let's start from that. It is NVT, or network value to transactions. Basically what it does, it divides the market capitalization to the volume of the transaction in the blockchain for the certain period of time. So let's add it, and let's remove some of the maybe not that necessary data. So now you can see how it looks like. It is basically a curve with some fluctuations, and you see red areas and green areas. What are those red areas? It is obviously that this is the areas when you shall sell, because the price is very high, and the green areas where you need to buy because the price is very low. So you can think of that in many different ways, but basically the way you can put it is that since you divide the market capitalization by the volume transactions in dollars, in principle it is equivalent to the Bitcoin token supply divided by the daily Bitcoin value transactions through the blockchain. So basically it is 1 divided by the volume, because the number of Bitcoins is pretty much the same. If you will compare it like two different states, then basically what you need to know is how the amount of the transaction, the volume of transactions on blockchain, which is represented from in Bitcoins, will look like. How does it change? And see here it means that the volume of transactions is very low. Here it means the volume of transactions is very high. It may seem counterintuitive at the first glance, but actually, for example, here, if you plot the volume profile, I can't do that here, but if you plot the volume profile, then you would see that at the very top, there was not so much of the volume traded. A lot of the most of the smart money, huge players were entered at this area. So they entered here. It was the biggest volume. Again, if you'll switch to BLX, Brave New Coin, then you will see that the volume is biggest at this area, well, excluding some of the glitches, but still, this is the volume where was the most trading happened. And then this smart money slowly have been selling their funds during the rise. And when the biggest liquidity was here, they of course sold a lot, but at this point it was not so many people already entering. Of course there was some small investors like you and I, but it wasn't the huge money here. So, and also you can think of that in the way that the biggest the number of transactions was huge, but the volume of each transaction was small, so the cost of transaction was also very high. So not so many people wanted to spend that money to perform this transaction, and also a lot of the small investors just kept their coins on the exchange, so they bought it with the, let's say, fiat, and they didn't move it eventually because it's a cold storage of the exchange, and basically it doesn't affect the blockchain volume, transaction volume. But here at the same time it is completely different, because here, and again here, the people before, huge players which were selling their coins, their Bitcoin, they just cashed out, right? So they don't affect the volume of the transactions when they cashed out already. So they have their fiat, that's it. And here, as I said, the situation is completely different. So they are loading their coins and they try to manipulate the market in a way to load as much as possible. And also this is very narrow, like small period of time, but the release of their buying was very long, to here and here. So that is why at this area the volume of transaction was actually the biggest, and this area was quite small. And it is interesting that if you look at zoom this in, then you will see that at the moment, as soon as we drop below $6,000 to this 3,000 plus area, then this area, this level of NVT is actually lower than it was here when we had a lot of accumulation. It's not necessarily that we are in the very bottom, right? Like it can go even lower, it can stay there forever. It's all of that is true, but relatively it means that we're very, very possibly, very likely to be at the bottom, and maybe even like already past it when it was 3,150. Moreover, some people are considering the fact that there was Liquid network and Lightning Network started to operate, so they actually need to have some corrections of this data, because the NVT tracks only the on-chain transactions, not side-chain transactions, and on the longer time scale it's actually sort of neglected. But as you switch to daily chart, it will look a bit different, well, quite different. And a lot of people are referring to that as saying that, you see, we are not that low right now. We are still have room to fall. But guys, again, lower time frames, the lower you set it, the less accurate you will have the result. So yeah, we can indeed drop a little bit more, but this is not as accurate as you look from the longer time frames. Okay, and another thing which I was going to mention is this one. So I tweeted this chart. Basically what you can see here is that the two plots, the solid curve is the Bitcoin price, and the field sort of plot is the field area is the Bitcoin transaction count, the number of transactions, not the volume, but the numbers. And you can see that it's pretty quite, well, I would say a correlation here between the previous cycle and the current cycle. But the top of the price, from the top of the price, the number of transactions basically was pretty flat, didn't change that much. And then at certain point they start to rise. At the same time, the price of Bitcoin was continuing to decrease, to fall. And then this is a divergence, right? So sometime after that we had the bottom and accumulation period and then bull market. And eventually after the recent top, recent high, we had very similar situation. The number of transactions was pretty much flat, and then it started to rise. So it's continuing to rising actually, and we're already in the divergence period for a while, and basically we are very close to either this pre-bull market, already in this pre-bull market. So just a correlation, but you see it lines up very nicely in the whole picture. I must say that this NVT indicator was made by Willy Woo, which is a decent guy in terms of the analysis of Bitcoin and knows a lot. So, but he actually said that he doesn't believe that the bottom is in, and he showed, for example, this chart with the price and volume of the coins as he wrote changing hands. So basically the volatility of the volume. And in fact, I don't see that there is like correlation between this area and this area, maybe, but it's really speculative. But still, it's his opinion. So he and some other ones like Murad Mahmudov, they say that no, the bottom is not in. Murad Mahmudov is also a very knowledgeable person about Bitcoin. I really highly recommend to listen his interview with Anthony Pompliano about the Bitcoin in general in the Pompliano's podcast of the chain. Interesting, very interesting interview, and a lot of the data is there. So a lot of thoughts, I would say. And he actually, we already referred to his analysis before. He showed a lot of the statistics, a lot of the technical analysis. And for example, this one is another one, just an example, but still he said that we probably will break 2000 week moving average this time. It will not hold as it is held in 2015, and it has a lot of the explanations and like really comprehensive data here. So and by the way, he is quite of the long-term bull for Bitcoin. He believes that we eventually, whenever it will happen, but Bitcoin will cost like, each Bitcoin will be like $10 million. So he really believes in Bitcoin. He's a Bitcoin maximalist, I would say. Well, sort of. But even he thinks that we didn't reach the bottom. And he with Murat, together with another developers, analysts, they developed another indicator which is called MVRV, market value to realized value ratio. And what it does, it basically calculates market value, which is just the capitalization of Bitcoin, and realized value. Realized value, it is the value of the coins mined at the certain time. So like the value of those coins at a certain time. Instead of counting all the mined coins at equal, which is very clever, current price, the UTXOs, unspent transaction outputs, are aggregated and assigned a price based on BTC USD market price at the time when said UTXOs last moved. So very, very interesting approach. And basically they have a lot of the explanation about what it is, why it is relevant, why it has the fundamental basics, and the whole article is filled with that. So I would recommend you to read it. But in a couple of words, it basically reflects the sort of ratio between speculation and holding, when more people are holding Bitcoin. And if for example, if you'll draw this realized value, then it will be more flat and continue to climb. similar to market capitalization or Bitcoin price, but it is sort of less volatile, and you see that there's a small dips after the next steps, and those dips sort of reflect how holders give up and surrender their coins to the lower price, then fix their losses at some point. And in any way, it is very few people who are doing that, because you see those dips are small. But if you'll make this ratio, you have very interesting result. And also, if the market price is lower than that, then apparently this is sort of an oversold area, and the price should return to this realized value. And it does, in fact, it does for previous two bear periods, bear markets, or the bottom areas. So this is the old article, maybe from the end of 2018, maybe like August or September, and there are actually more data. You can plot this realized capitalization or MVRV and NVT as well on this site, which is coinmetrics.io. I don't think that you can find this, or at least MVRV, on TradingView. So I would refer you to this website. And what you can see here is that this was the bottom, right? So this was the bottom in 2014, and this how the realized capitalization or price dropped, like headed this dip. Now we're basically again approaching this area, and we already made this like inclined part, so we already here, I would argue. And moreover, continue with this in-depth analysis. There is another guy, Renato Shirakashi. This person, he actually made a lot of the other analysis about Bitcoin price and everything. For example, he mentioned that the dips when we had in 2014-15 is really similar to 18th-19th. If we'll make it in different time scale, you can see the clear similarity. I actually tweeted a similar thing before, but yeah, you see it's really like very similar. And this guy wrote an article which is basically called the bottom, Bitcoin bottom is in. So a lot of the data I took from his article. So basically what he's saying, that he analyzed these two things, MVRV, and well, a lot of data here, but the main conclusion is that also NVT, is that if you plot all three together, so blue is the price of Bitcoin, realized value is red, and NVT is green, you can see two things. First is that again we are below realized value, which indicates that we are pretty much somewhere in this area if we will return to 2015. And second, if you look at NVT, then you would see that actually this figure is so much similar to what we had before. It just amazingly almost the same. You see dip number 1, correction, dip number 2, correction, drop to the number 3, some flat area around here, and then the same here, 1 correction, 2 correction, dip, number 3 flat area, and then the next step is just amazing. Up, correction, up, and down, up, correction, up and down. You see we are in this area. If you will refer to the previous bear cycle, basically we should be somewhere here already. So the lowest point should be already passed. Yeah, you would say that it's still speculative, right? It's not necessarily correct. And in fact, as I said, yeah, there are other opinions, and like moving average is one of them, which is sort of controversial, but you see it is sort of lined up all together, and it seems like it makes a lot of sense. At least it makes a lot of sense to me. So what I was going to, and again, yeah, just returning back to my conclusion that those people are looking at the daily, right? And I would encourage you to look at the weekly chart. This is the weekly chart. Weekly, we are very, very low on NVT, and if you will plot MVRV, I think it's also will show you that it will also show you that the bottom is much more likely to be already made because the wider time scale, the bigger time scale gives you a better perspective. So I don't want to say, guys, go and take loans and sell your house and buy Bitcoin. No, what I'm just saying that I see a lot of the bear sentiment in the social media everywhere, and you see, it's not necessarily, there is no fundamental reason whatsoever, and no technical reason actually, if you'll dig deeper, that we have to drop to 2000 or 1000 or whatever price it should be. There is no need to do that. Only market will decide when whales will accumulate, when the regulations will come, when the institutions will come, many other things. But at the moment, it is clear that we are in the accumulation state. How far we can go from that, how low we can make a deep from during this state, but still, this is time to accumulate. It's my personal opinion, not a financial advice as usual, guys. But again, like, do you remember last or a few videos ago we discussed stochastic oscillator? It also nearly ideally show you the bottom was here and top was here, now it's showing the bottom around this area. So many things are lined up together that of course I need to consider that the price will go lower, or all of those are wrong, history will not repeat itself, and so on. But still, I tend to think that it is more likely that we already made this bottom. Okay, guys, if you like this video, I hope that you will see more in my daily updates, and hopefully it was useful and you learned something new. Thank you for watching. See you hopefully tomorrow. Safe trading, guys. Goodbye.